Hey everybody, my name is Dr. Alvarez. I am a associate professor in the Department of Sociology. Um, you might wonder why is a sociologist, presenting on um, financial literacy. It's mostly because I am an economic sociologist, meaning that I use the tools of sociology to evaluate economic phenomena. And so one of the key things that I focus on in my research is inequality within the consumer financial system. And so through that research, through interviewing folks, through interviewing consumers and policymakers and all that good stuff, I've learned quite a bit about our credit system, the student loan system. And so I'm here to share some of that knowledge with you to, provide my perspective and hopefully provide some helpful advice. I do have to say, though, as we're starting right now, that I'm not a financial advisor, right? I'm not somebody who's licensed and certified to provide financial advice. There are people who are paid to do that, right? I'm just here to provide you one perspective. You should get more information. I'm not trying to provide you specifically with life advice for what you specifically should do. This is general advice. Though that said, I'm happy to answer questions about, maybe your specific circumstances or broader questions. However, that said, please do keep in mind that I am not a financial advisor, and I'm going to give you some advice from a scholar who works in this area on ways of managing your money, your student loans, and your credit that I think will be helpful and put you in a good place, particularly after you graduate from your programs to sort of move forward in your financial lives and your professional lives as well. And so feel free to put some questions in the Q&A. I have a sort of like 30-minute PowerPoint, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe 35 minutes. And then the remainder of the hour, let's hope 25 minutes, I hope just to answer some questions. I wish we could do it sort of interactionally so I could see you and listen to you talk. However, in this particular case, I'll just read through the Q&A questions and I'll try to answer your questions to the best of my ability. Then, of course, I'll give you my email address. So if folks want to reach out about other issues or you want to read more about consumer finance or consumer finance and inequality, you can always reach out and I'm happy to hook you up. Okay. So with that said, just hello, everybody. I hope you all are all doing well. I'm just going to jump right ahead. There's a PowerPoint here. And I'm going to share it with everybody. I hope you can see it. For those of you who can't see it, I believe UpGrads will make it available. You can always reach out to me. I'm happy to email you a PDF version of this after we're done. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Oh, I think that's the wrong thing I just shared. Sorry about that, everybody. There we go. So we go to slideshow. Hopefully everybody can see this okay. Financial strategies for graduate students. There's my name, all that good stuff. So the very first thing I want to start off, telling you all is that, we use the title financial literacy because everybody knows what financial literacy means. But I sort of object to the idea of financial literacy, not because everybody knows what's going on in finance and everybody knows how to budget and everybody knows how the credit system works. It's not that. It's because the language of financial literacy often tries to put the responsibility of financial problems on individuals. It's, you don't know how things work. That's why you're having money problems. My research, and there's lots of other research, both in economics and sociology and lots of other fields, suggests that that's really not what the real issue is. There is a real sort of structural issue in our economy where we have seen stagnating wages for the last 35 to 40 years. And so much of the financial struggles that we see that communities go through emerge not from some ignorance on the part of individuals, not from some inability to save, like because you just don't want to save and you just want to always spend out your money. You always want to spend your money, and because you always have to have the latest Jordans or the best cars or rims. No, get all of that out of your head. No, the issue isn't your rims. The issue isn't your how often you go to Starbucks. The issue isn't your avocado toast or whatever it is. You pick, the narrative that people talk about, whether it's about millennials or anything else. That's not the issue. The reality of it is that we live in an economy that is set up to prey upon low and moderate income households and individuals, right? We know that education has gotten much more expensive. We know healthcare has gotten much more expensive. All of the sort of basic things in life have actually gotten much more expensive, while other things like consumer goods, TVs, clothing, these things have actually gotten much cheaper across time. But the main things that we need to advance in our lives, to feel like we have upwards mobility, a lot of that stuff has actually gotten more expensive across time. At the same time that we've actually experienced, again, stagnating wages. And so this puts particularly younger folks, if you're somewhere, between 25 and probably about, let's say 35, you're feeling this crunch of paying for school, paying for incredibly expensive housing, and no amount of cutting back on your on your coffee or your avocado toast or your IPAs. That's not the answer to this question. The answer to this question is political participation in our political system, where we try to increase wages across time, where we try to create a better healthcare system, where we create a much stronger social safety net. These are the answers. Now, that said, there are always ways in which we can try to manage this system better. None of us is perfect with our money. That's why we are here. We are here to try to do a little bit better with our own money, in our own circumstances. Okay, that's why we're here. And these bigger, broader structural issues, that is where we look for political participation, right? And I'm going to give you some tips about how to do this, okay? It says that somebody raised their hand, but there's actually not a way for me to actually see that. So let me actually, if I can stop for just 1 second and see if I can go to Q&A, or if somebody wants to put a chat in there. If you have a question, you can maybe throw it in the chat real fast. If there's an issue, but if there's, otherwise, I want to save all the questions until we get to the end, okay? So if you have a technical problem, drop it in the chat, but otherwise, I'm going to just keep going. We'll save the questions until the end, okay? Can everybody hear me? I'm assuming people can. I'm going to assume people can. All right, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate you. All right. Letting me know. Thank you. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. Let's keep moving. All right. So that was my spiel about not internalizing this sort of deficit thinking that you often hear people when they talk about people's financial position, talking about how, millennials don't save their money, they're not using their money correctly. That's not what's going on. There are these large-scale structural issues in the economy that actually puts people in very vulnerable financial positions. We're going to talk a little bit about this. I had a long thing in the PowerPoint about it, but I took it out. We're going to talk just a little bit about that right here. That in modern America, we deal with a large amount of economic volatility, substantial fluctuations in income, that's inconsistent work schedules, less than full-time hours at where you work, keeping you from trying to get health care and other benefits. And so, again, I just want to make this point to you all so that you really hear me. And I know I'm being a little bit repetitive and I know I'm getting on my soapbox, but you have to recognize that there's a difference between trying to manage your money a little bit better and recognizing that there are these larger scale structures that are actually really set up to prey on low and moderate income folks. Think about it. When you get into trouble, if you're a low income individual and you don't have a credit card, what do? You go and get a payday loan, right? Payday loan is a very expensive form of credit, right? You can't afford, you move and you can't afford furniture. So what do? You go to Rent America and you spend an exorbitant amount of money renting furniture rather than buying it, right? So there are all of these mechanisms in our economy set up to profit from poverty, to profit from economic instability, right? And so you can't like internalize that you're some bad person and you don't have good morals because you're having a hard time making ends meet. The system right now is set up to do that, right? What you're trying to do is to play this game just a little bit better so that long term you can put yourself into a position to do better, to reach some economic goals that you might have for yourself, whether it's owning a home, what have you, right? So we talked a little bit about economic volatility. What about financial insecurity? So what is this? This is the inability to amass emergency savings. Pre-COVID, 46% of families couldn't manage to scrape together $400 in emergency funds if something were to happen to them. 46% of households, right? And so you really have to think about the type of stress and anxiety that puts you under when you can't even blow a tire on your car without actually worrying about where you're going to come up for the money. And like, there are many of us in this workshop right now who have experienced this firsthand. I know I have. When you roll up to the gas station and you have change, you're trying to buy gas, right? So, we've all been there, and you have to understand you can't internalize this stuff. You just have to put one foot in front of the other, learn the rules of this game a little bit better so that you can try to reach your goals, right? So that's actually the setup for this conversation. Is the structural stuff. But now I sort of want to get into the system itself. And I want to start talking about credit, because credit is the thing that is going to provide a foundation for you over the long term of your life. So, and what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that what we have found in the research on inequality, on economic insecurity, is that the key issue for sort of maintaining your economic position is, yes, of course, you want to have a good income, right? So that you can try to save. But the thing that's actually very important, that's sort of central to this, is trying to get access to wealth. Wealth is your, it's the backstop that you have. It's your foundation that you can fall back on. You have, you have a bad health diagnosis, where you can try to get a mortgage on your home. You can fall back on your wealth. But as many of you all probably know, there's this huge racial wealth gap in this country right now. And so, if you come from a black or brown community, like obviously, like I do, you don't have like this privilege of falling back on these large sums of wealth when things go bad, right? So how do you start building towards that wealth? Well, one is trying to protect your credit, because what you need to be able to do is to be able to access these credit markets. You want to be able to get essentially access to debt that allows you to buy these assets, whether it's a house, a condo, whether it's trying to invest money, whatever it is, you need credit for this, right? And so it's important for you to understand how the credit system works. And so we're going to go through that in a couple of slides before we start talking about some other issues, right? So the first thing is, do you know what your credit score is, right? Do you know what your credit score is, right? How many of you all know? Maybe if you just drop it in the chat. Have you gone to look at your credit scores before? Have you gone to find out what your credit scores? Do you know where to get those, that information? Some of you are saying yes. Yes, that's good. No, it is. It can be very eye-opening. We're going to talk about how to do this. One key way to find out to find out what your credit is and what it looks like is to go to this website, annualcreditreport.com, annualcreditreport.com. Everybody is entitled to one free copy of their credit report per year. And there are three main credit, monitoring, not credit monitoring, but credit reporting agencies like Equifax, TransUnion, etc. Right? You can get one free from each of those. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that what's on your credit report is a listing of all the credit cards you've gotten in the past, if you have a lien against you, if you've ever declared bankruptcy, all of that stuff shows up in your credit report. What does not show up in your credit report is your actual credit score. And we're going to talk about credit scores in just one second. I'm going to show you what the range of possible credit scores actually are, right? But instead, what they show you are the things, all of the financial obligations that generate, from which they use to generate your credit score, right? And so it actually, to be able to see your credit score, you actually have to pay them for that. You actually have to pay them to see what the credit score is for your own financial information. This is another way where the system is set up against you, right? The credit scores are used in determining who gets a credit card, who gets a mortgage. There are some places that use credit scores in housing applications, in job reports. Right now, there's some legislation out there trying to fight that, and different states have different ideas about whether or not you should be able to do this, right? But like, these credit agencies want you to pay to have access to your credit scores, even though you can get access to your credit report, which is just a listing of the actual obligations that you have. And again, it's another way that this system is set up against you. What you will see is that some banks and some credit cards, if you have them, will actually monitor your credit score for you, and you can actually see what your credit score is through that avenue. But you actually can't get your actual credit score from the credit reporting agencies themselves. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? And so you can get it. If you leave here today, one of the first things that you should do is to use that website, annualcreditreport.com, and actually go and get a copy of your credit report and look through it to see, is there anything there that should not be there? Or is there a credit card listed that you never got, right? Is there a payment that it says that you missed, that you paid? It will list your home addresses and all the addresses that they have on file, or some of those not related to you, right? I've done a lot of research on credit justice, and so I'm also happy to talk about policies about credit justice, some of the inequities in the credit reporting system, but I want to sort of save that for the Q&A system as well, okay? So we'll save that for a little bit. So let me keep going, because as y'all can see, I like to talk, I get passionate, I get energetic, I need to keep moving forward, so I'm going to keep moving, I'm going to keep myself moving. All right. So where can you get sort of an easy way of seeing what's on your credit report without going to annual credit report, or if you want to monitor it more frequently? I use a site called Credit Karma. Credit Karma is free. It is free. Now, of course, when you have free services, typically that means that you're not paying for the product because you are the product. Do you understand what I'm saying? They have your information and they use your information in some way. Historically, I was very, very comfortable with Credit Karma because they did not sell your information to other folks. But what they did do is try to connect you to different credit card companies, mortgage companies. They were sort of like a middleman. However, Credit Karma was recently bought by Intuit. Intuit is the company that owns TurboTax. And TurboTax is let's just say you should probably not trust Intuit as a company. They stand in the way of tax reform in this country. One of the reasons why we have to pay to get our taxes done every year is because Intuit doesn't want, paying taxes to be easier. So I'm just giving you the information that I know about Intuit so that you have full information about whether or not you want to use Credit Karma. All that said, I do use it. I don't get inundated with emails from them or any of that stuff. They will give you a sort of fake version of your credit score. So what do I mean by that? They have a specific algorithm that they use on the information on your credit report to give you a version of your credit score. And that can be a useful thing to do. It's a useful piece of information to have if you're thinking about applying for credit cards, if you're thinking about applying for housing soon, if you're thinking about applying for a mortgage. It's really, really useful for you to have that information. It will also detail for you a good selection of the information that's actually on your credit report, right? And by the way, for those of you putting in questions in the Q&A, I know I'm definitely going to get to those. We're just going to save it to the end and I'll take it there, right? So I see the questions showing up. I got you. We're going to get there, okay? So I use Credit Karma. You do you. You decide if you really want to do that or not, right? So what are the factors that actually generate your credit score? What are the factors that generate your credit score? There are 5 main factors, And let me tell you something here, and I'm going to say it in like 2 sentences and we can talk about it more in the Q&A if people are interested. The creation of the credit score was tied up in the civil rights movement. It was tied up in the sort of women's movement in the 1960s and portions of the 1970s. And so there's lots of underlying stuff in the actual credit scoring system that is very political, that is not visible to us, right? And so there's reasons for you to want to pay attention to where these credit scores come from and how they impact certain communities, right? So that's all I'll say about that. We can talk more about it, right? So what are the 5 basic things that go into your credit score? The biggest thing and most important thing is your payment history. Have you missed a payment on a financial obligation, specifically on something like a credit card or on a mortgage payment, something like that? Keep in mind that if you rent a house, if you rent an apartment, your payments to your rent payments are not factored into your credit score. The only way that those would be factored into your credit score is if you stopped paying and your landlord entered some sort of judgment against you, tried to get a lien against you. That can show up in your credit score. But even if you are paying your rent on time, it does not show up as something positive on your credit score, right? If you have a mortgage and you pay your mortgage on time, that is positive. And if you miss a mortgage payment, that is negative, right? So certain types of payments show up, but others don't, right? So you have to keep, they are very, very particular. But if credit cards, mortgage payments, those type of things definitely do show up on your credit score. And if you miss a payment on them, it will ding your credit score. Payment history has the largest effect. It makes up 35% of your credit score. And on top of that, if you miss a payment, that missed payment stays on your credit report for 7 years. For 7 long years, right? For 7 years, it shows up. So now, does that mean if you're like 10 days late on paying a thing that you should you should freak out? No. It's actually broken up by a 30-day missed payment, a 90-day missed payment, and then a 120-day missed payment. The negative impact on your credit score will increase based upon how late that payment is. So if you don't pay it in 30 days, boom, the 30 days shows up on your credit report. You don't pay it in 90 days, you then have that last month, that first month, you have that 30-day missed payment. 2 months from that, the 90-day missed payment shows up, right? Then further down, the 120-month payment shows up, right? And then you have, over that many months, all of those missed payment things showing up on your credit score. Each one of them has an independent negative impact on your credit score, and that lasts for 7 years, right? For 7 years. This includes, obviously, your student loans. Your student loans are clearly factor into this as well. This is why it's so important to make sure that once your student loans start, that you start paying them. And I say this from personal knowledge. After I graduated from my graduate program, got my PhD, started as a professor here at UCLA, my student loans started. And I knew about some of them and I didn't know about others. And I paid some of them and I didn't pay others. And so those ones I missed had this long-lasting impact on my credit score that's just rolling off literally this month. Literally this month, right? So it's really important that you stay on top of paying these bills, that you know what your obligations are, whether it's credit cards, student loans, mortgage payments, a car loan, no matter what it is, right? You need to know this, okay? Outstanding balances, right? What does this mean? If you have a credit card and you are using more than, say, about 30 to 35% of your available credit, this will lower your credit score. It will lower your credit score. Now, it doesn't last for like 7 years because they monitor this. And so like if it's 40% one month and then it drops down to 10% or 5% the next month, then your credit score will go down the first month and then it will go back up the next month. What you will see is that credit scores are incredibly volatile, right? You'll have these 5-10-point fluctuations depending upon what's going on in your credit, right, across a month, right, across months. It's the payment history that's the baseline for that, though. It's the payment history that's the baseline for that. But outstanding balances, the more outstanding credit that you have, the lower your credit score will be. Now, this will vary some, right? This will vary some, but the takeaway for outstanding balances is don't carry credit card balances month to month. Pay off your credit cards. Pay off your credit cards. I mean, you all have probably all heard this before. Do not carry balances on your credit card. If you do carry balances on your credit card, get it underneath 30%, right? Get it underneath 25%. Eat away at it. You want to get rid of your credit card debt. Credit card debt is one of the worst forms of debt that you can get. Now, the only thing worse than credit card debt is if you have a store card debt, if you have a Macy's card, if you've got a Victoria's Secrets card, that is actually worse debt, and you should pay that debt off first and then pay off your credit card debt. There is priorities that we can actually prioritize these types of debt, and we'll talk about that in the types of credit history, right? So outstanding balances, 30%. Keep your balances low to the extent possible. You all have heard this before. To the extent possible, pay off your credit cards. Don't carry balances. It's not worth it. It's going to cost you money over the long run. Don't do it. Length of credit history. This is just how long have you actually had a credit report, right? How long do you have a credit report, and how long have there been active credit accounts on that credit report? This is one of the actual benefits of having student loans, because a student loan shows up on your credit report the minute you take out the loan, not when you start paying it back. So if you started taking out loans when you started undergrad, and then you took out some more loans in grad school, you don't have to pay those loans until you graduate from grad school, but the length of your credit history will actually start when you started undergrad and you took out your first student loan, right? So you want to start building this credit history. The longer you have a credit history, the stronger your credit will be. The shorter your credit history, right? The shorter your credit history, the lower your credit score will be, but within reason, because it's only about 15% of your score. It's only about 15% of your score. This is why sometimes it may make sense for you to get a credit card that you don't use, that you just have. Why? Because that credit card shows up as an active credit account, and even if you keep it for 10 years or 15 years, that's going to increase the length of your credit history. That improves your credit score. That's why you have different credit scores, right? I will also point out to you this outstanding balances, right? If you have 5 different credit cards, right? And your total available credit is $20,000, right? But you have one credit card where you're using 50% of your available limit. It doesn't look at just that credit card. It looks at your available credit overall. This is why having multiple cards can be useful for you, because it will lower your outstanding balances. It will lower the percentage of your available credit that you are actually using. This is why you might do this, right? But if you have multiple cards, you get cards that don't have monthly, that have yearly fees. Don't get those cards. Why pay a yearly fee just to have a card you don't use? That doesn't make any sense. There are plenty of cards out there that you can get that don't have, that do not have yearly fees, right? That's the type of thing that you would want to get at. That will help you with your outstanding balances, okay? So what's next? Number of credit inquiries, 10%. This is actually kind of straightforward. You should try not to have more than 2 or 3 credit, they're called credit pulls, on your credit account, on your credit report. What does this mean? That means when you apply for a credit card, they do what's called a hard pull on your credit. They take your credit score and they take your credit report and they generate a credit score. The fact that they actually look at your credit then shows up on your credit report. And if too many people are looking at your credit report, this will lower your credit score, right? Well, you might be like, what the hell kind of sense does that make? The way that the credit agencies look at it is that if you have a lot of people looking at your credit report, this means that you're in desperate need of credit and that therefore you might be a credit risk. Now, I think that that's a bunch of, I'm gonna try not to cuss, a bunch of BS, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's lots of reasons why you might be doing this. However, that's the way the credit system works. Now, let's say that you're applying for a mortgage, right? They do give you like a grace period where you can have multiple folks looking at your credit, your credit report, who are all, for instance, mortgage lenders. So it doesn't have this huge negative impact on your credit score. However, if you're applying for a bunch of credit cards, you're applying for a gas card, you're applying for a mortgage, you're applying for all of these things all at once, across like a 2-year span, this will have an impact on your credit score and lower your credit score, but keep in mind that it's only 10%. Now, what about something like when you get your credit score from your bank or from your credit card, or if you use Credit Karma? Those are not hard pulls. Those are soft pulls, okay? A soft pull does not have an impact on your credit score, so it doesn't make a difference how often. For instance, Credit Karma will actually check your credit report to show you your credit score. So those are soft pulls. You don't have to worry too much about those. It's the hard pulls that really, really do make a difference, and you want to minimize the hard pulls to the extent possible, right? Well, I've been talking like crazy, and we're only like 4 slides in. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm going to move a little bit faster. And if somebody wants me to wait to go a little slower, you throw it in a chat and I'll keep it there, all right? I apologize, everybody. I hope this is useful for you so far, okay? Next, types of credit history. This means that the different types of credit that you have, right? Mortgage credit, if you have a mortgage, that's considered good credit. It's a good form of credit to have. It increases your credit score just having that debt. So even though you might have 350, 450, 500,000 debt on your credit score, it's not bad for you. It is good for you. It actually helps you, right? Because having mortgage debt makes it look like you're a solid person. You have a solid debt. And so that's good. Credit card debt, only okay debt. Only okay debt. Having too much credit debt, not so great. Store debt, bad debt. They don't want you to have store debt. That's bad. It will lower your credit score. Student loans, kind of in the middle. Not bad, not good. Won't have a super large impact on your credit score either way. paying them off can be positive, have a slight positive impact on you, but like, it's not something that you should really focus on. And again, that's only about 10%. Okay. So I'm going to keep moving, go pretty quickly. What is the FICO score range? What is the range of scores? Okay. Where is the range of scores? Bad, poor, fair. You can kind of think of this area right here, fair, poor, very bad. I don't like that language because I don't think that it's an okay description of how the credit system may look at your credit score. But there's lots of things that people do in their everyday lives to meet their financial obligations that the credit scores don't see, whether it's, helping your grandma, helping your peoples, meet their requirements, taking care of your kids. None of that gets factored in, right? So saying somebody has very bad credit is it shows you that the credit system doesn't work for us. It works for them, right? It works for the system, right? Anyway, I'm getting on my soapbox again. Focus. This is what you might call subprime. Your goal is to get out of this range, right? Your goal is to start making consistent payments on your debts, to try to manage your credit so that you get, technically subprime is anything under about a 680. You want to get above 680. Remember, if you're raising your hands, to drop a question into the Q&A, okay? So that I can see it there, right? So you want to get above that subprime area, because that means that you'll get better terms for credit cards. It means you'll get better terms for your mortgage. It means that you can feel more confident about applying for housing, because some places when you apply to rent an apartment, they will obviously they will also check your credit score, and so your job is to really, if you're thinking about improving your credit, if you fall in this range, don't panic. Just think, okay, short-term goal, I'm trying to give about 680. Let me start working on this. Let me get my credit report. Let me start making sure I know what all my debts are. Let me make sure I start paying all my debts, right? And let me start moving forward. Let me get above 680. Then you make a plan for what you do after you get to 680, so that you start getting in this area, right? And really, if you get into the very good or excellent term, you're going to be fine when you apply for mortgages, or you apply for cars, or for a car loan, all of that good stuff, okay? So what should your goals be? What should your financial goals look like, right? You need to make a budget. Make a budget. You have to make a budget, right? I'm not saying be 100% on top of every single penny and dime and nickel that comes into your household, right? I mean, it's good for you to do that. I would say long term, that's what your goal is, but you at least have to understand, what are my obligations, and typically what comes in, right? What comes in, what has to go out, and when. You just need to know that. You need to start with an Excel file, a Word document, where you have that written up. You are not looking for perfection. You're looking for knowledge. Let me just make sure I know this information. I'm going to make this point in just 1 second, that the key first step to having good credit, to putting yourself on better financial footing, is not being perfect about your money. It's increasing the salience of the money in your life. Because for a lot of people, and I'm talking from personal experience, and some of y'all will know this, and it's going to hit home for you. Some people are stressed out about money. You have anxiety about it. You have stress about it. And what do you do about stress and anxiety? You avoid. You avoid. That is, in my research, the number one thing that you want to not do. That avoidance, even though it can have short-term positive effects on your well-being because you're not thinking about it, long-term, it is going to create more stress for you. It's going to create more anxiety. You have to start tackling the issue by putting aside your avoidance, making a budget, right? And taking away some of that anxiety and nervousness about paying your debts by using autopay. Autopay is your friend. It's your friend, because even when you forget and even when you avoid, it's going to pay that debt, right? It's going to pay, it's going to meet that obligation, even if it's just a minimum on your credit card, on your, or on your, I don't know, whatever credit, your Exxon, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? It's going to pay that, right? Your Costco card, whatever it is, right? That's what you want. Now you may feel like, I can't trust auto pay because I feel like it's going to take my money and I may need it. That's why you need a budget, because you need to know what your obligations are and you need to know what money is coming in and when. This is why you do it. Auto pay is your friend. 2, you have to have some savings. I'm sorry. You have to have a little bit of, I'm not saying having $5,000 of savings. I'm saying have $500 to $1,000 of savings. So if something comes up, it is not a calamity for you. I'm not saying have it right now. I'm saying build to that, right? Get on top of your obligations. So get caught up. Start squirreling away money little bit by little bit by little bit, right? If you talk to an expert, they will say, right, a financial advisor, you should have at least 3 to 6 months of salary and savings, and actually technically not necessarily salary, but what your monthly financial obligations are, whatever that is, right? You should have 3 to 6 months of that squirreled away. So if you lost your job, you can meet all of your obligations for 3 to 6 months. How you would save that in this economy with, the jobs that are offered to some of us, right, that we're trying to get better at in grad school, no, it just doesn't make any sense. $500 to $1,000 so you can meet a couple of little bills here and there. You can get some emergency childcare if you need it, right? You can pay to get that catalytic converter fixed. You can get that windshield fixed, whatever it is that comes up, right? Right, so that you can go and get that tooth looked at that just cracked on you, right? For those of you, and I know y'all are out there that have those dentistry emergencies that you can't even function because your tooth hurts so much, right? That's why you have a cushion, right? $500 to $1,000. It is the most important thing that you can do. It really is. You just need something. You need something. And if you want to, that bigger narrative like the Susie Ormans or the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I call all of that nonsense, right? If you want to know why, take my class, Sociology 470, the Sociology of Money. We can talk about this and deconstruct this. But if you want to think about cutting back on your Starbucks and cutting back on your avocado toast or whatever the hell, this is the place where you would do it for a little bit so you have that cushion and then you can get right back to it. Just this for that. Finally, what is your aim? Avoid late payments on bills. You want to protect your credit. Your credit is an asset. You need to protect it. You need to the extent that is possible, avoid missing payments. This is why you do the budget. This is why you set up auto pay. This is why you have that emergency money. It's so that you can protect your credit and not miss payments on bills. It's very important, right? It's very important. You're not saving up for a house or a car right this second while in grad school. You do you. If you got money like that, you do you. But for just protecting your credit, for us, this conversation right now, you need to have a cushion, you need to meet your bills, and you need to protect your credit, because your credit is an asset that you are going to use to build on to get wealth down the road. Student loans. So how do student loans fit into this conversation? I'm monitoring the time. I'm keeping an eye on. By the way, I will stay and answer all questions that are in the Q&A. Y'all may have to go. Y'all have my commitment that I will stay and answer questions when I'm done. I may hurry through the end, but I will answer questions. I promise y'all, okay? This is me being shy, but this is important information, and it's really, really key for you to know. That's why I'm doing this, right? So, 1, what about student loans right now? Probably many of you all may know that all payments are deferred into at least September 30th, 2021. You don't have to make payments, and the interest rates on your student loans are set to 0%. This applies, though, only to federal loans. Only to federal loans. Some of you might have private loans, right? Private loans. Some of y'all might be like, I have no idea what you are talking about right now, Dr. Alvarez. That's okay. We're going to get there. Okay. We're going to get there. Most of you will probably have federal loans, federal subsidized loans or federal unsubsidized loans. All of those loans you do not have to pay. Private loans is entirely up to your private lender whether or not they want to extend to you this grace period until September. And so, there's no way for me to tell you when that yours is. You'd have to figure that out, right? So where can you go to get more information? Studentaid.gov. You can go to that specific link, but studentaid.gov is your main place that you want to go to for information about student loans. If you don't have that written down right now, you should write it down right now. We're going to talk about it multiple times throughout this, the rest of this. Okay. Again, I'm going to keep moving now. And again, if you want this again, I'll send it to you. Well, so another thing to keep in mind, you take out a loan. If you have loans, right? You have a student loan. Some of that money is provided by the federal government. The federal government is not the person who collects the bills for that student loan. We have such a messed up system is that we have private companies that we hire and pay to actually manage those loans from the federal government. In other words, there are middlemen, private companies who make money off of the government and from our tax dollars just to manage student loans. And do you want to take a guess whether or not those people are your allies in this process? Anybody want to guess? Do you think they're your allies? They are not. They are not your allies in this process. Anytime you talk to a student loan servicer, which is what they are called, you should document every single communication you have with them. Keep every single email, take copious notes, write emails to yourself, save all the emails they send you, take notes as evidence. You want to back up every single thing that happens with your student loan servicers because in general, they are not your allies in this process. They are their own allies. They serve their own ends. So you need to be your own advocate with the student loan servicers. There's lots of evidence, lots of scholarly research, lots of penalties being given out to student loan servicers for not adequately helping the actual student loan borrowers. Protect yourself from your servicers. You need to know who your servicer is for your loan. It might be Navient, it might be Nelnet, it could be ECSI, Great Lakes, which might have become Navient. It's really complicated right now. They are the people you have to talk to if you want deferment on your loans or if you want to use forbearance, meaning that you want to not pay your loan for some time. So let's say in December you lose your job and you've already graduated or you can't get a job. You need forbearance, you need deferment. You need to talk to your student loan servicer in order to get access to those, to those services. You have rights to get access to those services. Your right as a student loan borrower is to have those services. Your student loan servicer is supposed to facilitate that. That is not always what they do. There are also different types of repayment options that you can get. I don't want to go into the details of that, but we can. There's income driven, there's a 25 years extended, there's all these different repayment options. Your student loan servicer is supposed to help you choose what best fits you. I'm telling you, you should educate yourself on those repayment options. Choose the one that's best for you and advocate for that with your student loan servicers, right? That's what you have to do, right? Again, how do you know who your student loan servicer is? How do you know if it's a federal student loan? Well, again, you want to go to that studentaid.gov website. There's one final thing that I want to mention, and that is there is such a thing as loan forgiveness. That means after you graduate, if you go and work as a teacher in particular types of teaching in particular districts and particular schools, if you work for a qualifying public service employer, If you, for instance, if you work for Cal State Fullerton, which is an HSI, right? If you make steady payments over 10 years, you can have your loan forgiven. That's the way it's supposed to work. It has not worked in that way. And there's research that shows that of the thousands of people who should have qualified, only hundreds of people have been allowed to go through this process. Now, that's getting better now that there's the Consumer Financial Protection Agency, now that it's not the Trump administration that was weakening that agency, there is some reason to be optimistic that if you try to get into the public service employee the loan forgiveness program, it actually might work for you. And I would encourage you to investigate that when you're thinking about what you want to do after you graduate, right? So, because if you choose particular employers, you could have your loans forgiven if you work with a qualified employer. Investigate that. You want to go to studentaid.gov to find information about all of this. You go there, you make an account, which includes giving them your social security number. I just did this myself 2 days ago, so I'm telling you firsthand, because this is actually a new way that they do it. You set it up, you give them your social security number, you give them your name, your address, all that good stuff. Your information gets verified through the Social Security system, and between 1 to 3 days later, all of your student loans will show up in the account that you have made, and you can find out the interest rates, who your servicer is, you can make payments, all of that good stuff. Studentaid.gov is your friend. Now, if you do not have a social security number, your best bet for figuring out where you are with your student loans is to talk to the financial aid office here at Cal State Fullerton, okay? Talk to the financial aid office at Cal State Fullerton. Let me keep moving, okay? So, some people, and I'm going to do this really fast because I want to get to the Q&A. I often have people who worry about their student loans, right? Because they don't like having debt and they want to pay off their student loans as quickly as possible. And so some folks are even trying to pay off your student loans even while you're in grad school. You're like, should I pay? Should I make a little payments right now? Should I do that? I'm just going to tell you this right now. Paying off your student loans should not be your financial priority. Your financial priority should be getting caught up on all your bills and then making sure that you have a good financial buffer, $500 to $1,000. If you're about to graduate right now, right? Right after you graduate and you start paying on your loans, right? Your next job is to expand that buffer so that you do have 3 to 6 months of buffer in your savings account. That's the first thing before you even think about paying off your student loans. Well, let me just get to why that is, right? I'm going to skip over a lot of stuff that I detail here, right? Can your student loans help your credit? Yes, they can. One of the weird things that I find myself talking about, and the position is so contradictory to what I ever thought I would actually say to anybody, is that if you find yourself, particularly if you're in a subprime, if you're under 700 and you're looking to build your credit, your student loans can actually help. We've already talked about one reason why. If they've been on your credit report for a long time, so they increase the average age of your credit. That's going to help you. And then once you start paying on your student loans, that means that your percentage of on-time payments is going to increase, right? So when you make those on-time payments, that's the opposite of missing payments. Where missing payments decrease your credit score, on-time payments increase your credit score. So if you start paying those student loans on time, what do you think happens? Your credit score goes up, and it goes up pretty significantly because on-time payments, right, is 35% of your credit score, right? So between those two factors, on-time payments and the age of your credit score, paying off your student loans across time can actually increase your credit score rather than being in a hurry to pay them off, right? Paying them off too quickly can actually decrease your credit score. Why? Because when you pay off that loan, It's no longer an active credit line. And so when it rolls off, it will decrease your credit score. Now, it's only by 15%, but it does have a minor effect. I saw this. I paid off some of my credit loans, like, my credit loans, my student loans about 3 years ago. And my credit score took a little dip. It wasn't big. It went back up, right? It was like 12 points and it went back up within a year. Not the end of the world, but it's something that you actually have to think about if you're going to be using your credit to apply for credit score, to apply for credit, for applying for credit and all of it, or applying for a mortgage or something like that. Okay. Credit card debt, pay it off. Money management tips. Salience is key. Have a budget. Put money on your mind on a consistent basis. Think about your money every week. My wife and I sit down and we talk money every single week. We look at our money. We look at where we are. We evaluate overall our picture every month. It's going to stress you out, AF. That's just going to happen, but you need to do it. You have to face that anxiety, that stress. And if you're already doing it, good for you. Awesome, good for you. However, there are some of you who know this and you just need to hear somebody else say it to you. You have to conquer that avoidance. You have to directly address your money and have a budget. Not every single dollar, not every single quarter, dime, but you need to have a general sense of where you are, okay? Your goal in graduate school should be to protect your credit. Your credit is an asset. Focus on budgeting and a little bit of savings, paying down your student loan while in school. Typo like crap. I'm sorry about that. You get the point that I'm making. You don't need to pay off your student loans right now. Certainly not while you're in school. That should be a far off goal. And there are ways in which your student loans actually might be helpful for you. I'm going to stop sharing right now. Here we are. I'm going to click on Q&A right now and start asking questions. Are you all still there? It shows you there. Drop a yes or something in the chat for me. Let me know you're still there, that I got all your questions. Yes. Okay. You're still there. All right. All right. Okay. So if I check my credit score through my bank app around every 3 months, does it lower my credit score? Absolutely does not lower your credit score. That is a soft pull. Don't need to worry about that at all. Some of your credit cards and some of your banks will do it on a monthly basis. It is not a hard pull. One thing that you might not think about though is if you have a credit card and you request an increase in your balance, in your available credit, they actually might do a hard pull on your credit to see if you qualify for a higher limit. So you actually have to be a little bit careful about whether or not you request a higher limit on your credit card. And it could only be for like a month. Let's say you're like, my credit limit's $3,000. I want to charge a $5,000 vacation to get points, right? And then I'm going to immediately pay it off because I have the cash. And so you go to ask your credit card, I have a $5,000 limit. They might do a hard pull. So you need to be a little bit savvy about what you ask your credit cards and what could possibly increase what could actually show up as a hard pull. One thing that I will say is that if you're looking for resources, if some of you all ever go to Reddit, some of you all have heard of Reddit, some of you have not, Reddit. Reddit has consumer finance and personal finance threads. They have a huge amount of resources that they've already collected for people. And if you post questions there are really engaged people on Reddit who can answer some of your questions, who actually aren't trolly, aren't trying to yell racist stuff and all that stuff that you see in other places of Reddit, right? It's not like that. And they have these threads where they have pinned threads that just contain huge amounts of information about what are good credit cards, what are bad credit cards, should you be thinking about, what are good mortgages, what are good mortgage rates, all of that stuff. So there are a lot of resources available, and even I go to Reddit sometimes to look up information about consumer finance stuff. Second question. Yes, our personal finance. Very, very good. Very, very good. I hope you all can also see the chat stuff as well. Our personal finance is very, very good. That doesn't mean that every piece of information is tailored designed for your circumstances, but it's a baseline. What you often find in personal finance is that you have a very, very unique set of circumstances where other people's opinions and advice and resources aren't designed for your specific circumstances. That's when a financial advisor is useful. But here's another way that the financial system doesn't work for us. Financial advisors are extremely expensive. Most people who have financial advisors are wealthy people. They're wealthy people. That's who have financial advisors. And those people are not there to help you manage your money so that you stay afloat. They're there to help you grow your money. If you want budgeting help, there's not people out there. There's not people out there whose sole purpose is to help you make sure you're managing your money in a good way. There are, for instance, financial social workers who are folks that can help you do with that. But financial social work is not a big set in social work right now. So it's another way that our system is not designed to work with the vast majority of people who fall into low and moderate incomes. It doesn't work for us. It just doesn't, right? It really, really doesn't. And again, I'm happy to talk more about that. I'm getting on my soapbox. Excuse me. One question. Are services like Credit Karma or freecreditreport.com fine to use? Freecreditreport.com, absolutely free, fine to use. Credit Karma, I still use it, so I feel comfortable recommending it. It's not going to do you any harm. I have not seen a big worrying data breach from Credit Karma. Not that they haven't had one, but where my personal information was clearly released in a way that made me vulnerable. I felt comfortable using them and continue to use them. You all can use your own judgment about it, but it's a really useful site because otherwise, unless you already have a credit card or a bank that will give you your credit score, there's no way for you to see your credit score unless you're willing to pay the credit agencies to give it to you, right? And by the way, another thing about this that's super exploitative, the credit scores that your bank and your credit card give you and Credit Karma are not the credit scores that you're going to get when you go apply for a mortgage. You go and apply to get an auto loan. There are specific credit products just for mortgage lenders. There are specific credit products just for the credit card companies, just for the auto lending agencies, right? And so their credit scores are going to be different from yours. The algorithm they use varies. And so there's no way for you to, if you pay for your credit score from the credit reporting agencies, they will give you a variety of your credit scores that go out, but not all of them. And so it's just another way where it's not set up to help us as individuals. Okay, one question I would love insight on is how to build wealth. I have a savings account just with my bank, but I want to save money for my future. Is investing in the stock market the way to go? If so, how do I do that? That doesn't seem to be a very clear way to do that, and all the jargon is confusing. This is absolutely correct. This is what I will tell you about investing. I would never encourage any individual person to try to go out there and pick a stock and try to invest in a stock. There are too many people out there that have more time, more resources, more information than you do. And how are you going to beat them in the market? I mean, yes, you're all smart people. We're in grad school. We're doing well. There are people whose sole jobs is just to look at the stock market. How do you think you're going to make better decisions than they do? My recommendation to you is to find a way to invest in passive investment vehicles. These are things like your 401ks. This is like a Roth IRA where you there are all of these other passive investment, where you're investing essentially in stock market indexes that that essentially are a way for you not to pick individual stocks and therefore to reduce your individual risk. And so those are, I think, the best way for you to have relatively good, healthy returns without throwing your money into what is essentially a casino and hoping that you actually will pick a stock that's going to work for you, or pick, if you're into Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency, it is the wild, wild west out there. You're just as likely to make money as you are to lose money, right? You have to be super careful. If you've done the hard work of building up your savings, the last thing you want to do is to have a hunch about Bitcoin, right? And to throw your money at it and to find out 6 months later it's not going anywhere, right? Or to pick GameStop because you see it in the news, or you've been following the Reddit stock, right? And so my recommendation to you, never pick individual stocks. There are people who follow Bitcoin. There are lots of these cryptocurrency stuff right now. It is like a casino. You may be one of the lucky ones who picks one, and you put a lot of time and investment. You buy yourself a good computer. You spend a ton of money on a good processor and a video card, and you're going to mine a bunch of stuff. And maybe you get lucky, and maybe you're able to to make some money for yourself. Hey, good on you. But be real about what you're doing. You are at a high-tech casino. That's all that you're doing, and you're hoping it works out for you. That is what it is. That is what it is. Now, I have no judgment. If that's what you want to do, you do you. Y'all are all grown as adults. You do you. That's not what I do. I invest in these passive investment vehicles where I feel much more comfortable with the risk that I'm taking on. That's what I do. That's my own personal opinion, right? Like a casino, if you know what you're doing and you know how to play the odds, there are some ways in which you can try to get a leg up, but you're just taking a lot of risk. Okay, another question. Did you take out loans when you were in school? If so, how did you pay off your loans? Let me answer that first. Okay, yes, I ended up graduating with about, let's say, I'm trying to do my best through memory here, about $55,000 in student loan debt when I graduated, and I'm down to about $20,000 left in student loan debt right this second. There are all of these scams out there to try to get you in the student loan forgiveness program, where people will charge you by the month to make sure you're actually actively enrolled, when they couldn't actually guarantee you that you actually will get your loans forgiven. I thought that was a scam, and I wasn't willing to do it. I just decided to try to pay off my loans myself. How did I do it? I'm just going to be real with all of you all. There are ways in which faculty at Cal State Fullerton can earn extra money. How do we do that? If you teach an extra class, you get like a lump sum money. I taught some extra classes. I took that money, and then I just put it towards my student loans. So I was able to get these lump sum and pay it off. If I wasn't able to get those lump sums, I would have just paid it on the 10-year payoff plan. That's what most student loans are. You pay it off over 10 years. But when I found opportunities to get lump sums, I use that lump sums like if you get a lump sum tax return, I put that towards my student loans. Was that the best way to use my money? Probably not, but I started off with my high interest rate loans. Many of your graduate student loans have a higher interest rate than your undergraduate loans. Graduate student loans, I think, are around 6.8%, high 6, low 7s, I think, for some. So you want to if you're going to pay off student loans, start off paying your graduate student loans first. They're at a higher interest rate. Did you use the public servant benefit to get your loans forgiven? No, I didn't, because it was a big scam for a long time. At the time that I graduated, as I started going through this, the reports that I read said that there was maybe 130 to about 200 people of all the people who actually qualified, who actually could get through this process to get their loans forgiven. Why is that? Two reasons. I'll just be real with you. Moderates and conservatives in Congress really don't want the wrong people getting their loans forgiven, so they make you jump through hoops to make it difficult. And then the loan servicers don't necessarily want you to get your loans forgiven either. Why is that? They get more money when they have more loans that they're servicing, right? So there are people arrayed against the loan forgiveness program, right? That's the issue. And so I didn't do it. I just decided to pay it off myself, right? Side question: did UCLA pay more than didn't UCLA pay more than the Cal State school in terms of my income? Yes, UCLA pays more, but working at UCLA is a very different thing than working at Cal State Fullerton. I prefer to work at Cal State Fullerton. If you want more money, you work at UCLA. If you want to work with students and have a transformative experience with students, you work at Cal State Fullerton. How do we increase our disposable income in our careers? That's a longer conversation. I'm not sure we have time for that. There are ways in which you can do that. I would just tell you right off that I do not think the gig economy is the way to do that. Certificates and licenses, more education to advance our careers. Yes, those are different ways. As an educator, did the difference in pay from a master's degree to a PhD make that much a difference in income? It depends on the job that you get, to be honest with you. The difference in pay, for instance, between a community college professor versus a university professor is actually not that big, though the long-term life difference in earnings between a Cal State Fullerton, a university professor versus a community college professor is larger, and the benefits, at least in California, for a university professor versus a Cal State, a community college professor are somewhat larger. So it depends on the area that you're in. If you're in STEM, a STEM PhD puts you on a very specific trajectory, whereas a STEM MA, there's lots of good jobs you can get with a STEM MA that pay very well, where it wouldn't require you to have a PhD. And so the returns to a PhD in STEM may not be what you're looking for, but of course that varies considerably depending upon what you want to do. Pay off credit card first, then invest, or do both? No, always, from my perspective, pay off your debts, not necessarily your credit card debts first. The interest rates on your credit card debts are always going to be way more than the positive returns that you get on your investments. Let's say you get super lucky and you're getting 9% yearly returns on your investment. Your credit card interest rates are 16, 18, 19, 20, 21%. You want to get rid of that credit card debt as soon as you possibly can. As soon as you possibly can, without a doubt. What is the range of the moderate income? Moderate income, I would say, is maybe a little bit above median income in this country. In California, I would probably say if you make as an individual somewhere around $75,000 and below, you're probably at the moderate to the moderate level, all the way down to the low income. So you're probably grouped in there. In terms of household income, if your household income is somewhere around, let's say, $95,000 to about $100,000, you're probably moderate. I'd have to sit down and do the statistics for California specifically. But definitely, if you make $35,000, $45,000, $55,000, even $60,000 a year, you should not think of yourself as upper middle class, certainly not upper class. That's moderate income. In California, where housing prices can eat up between a third to a fifth of your income, you actually need to earn more to be in that moderate income area because housing costs are so high here, right? And so you need to earn a lot more, okay? How much money should you be investing in your 401k? I would always tell you to definitely to max out whatever your company's matching policy is. If they match 7%, it should be at least 7% of your income. But that's like a longer question depending upon where you are with your other income, with the other what other wealth you actually already have. But I would say that you should really, your income is going to grow a lot once you enter if you're younger and you enter the labor market. So now's the time to shovel money into your 401k. And then you sort of have to balancing that out with saving money towards if you're trying to buy a house, trying to save up for a down payment and all that good stuff. So then you start trying to balance things out. So it really does vary with your specific circumstances, when you want to buy a house and all that good stuff. What is the best way to go about opening an investment account such as a Roth IRA? Go through a credit union. Sometimes your company might have a relationship. The company that you work for might actually have a relationship with a particular financial, an investment company. That's another way to do it, but definitely through a local credit union, maybe even a bank. I trust credit unions over banks, personally myself. However, if you want to if you're willing to take a little bit more risk, go through a bank. That's what I would say. Have you used CD, certificate of deposit savings accounts? I haven't, but they're a perfectly fine vehicle. It's just that we've been a certificate of deposit is a place where you park your money for 6 months or a year. Usually, you get them for like a $500, $1,000, $10,000, $15,000, and they pay extra interest over that. However long you have that CD, we've been at such a low interest rate environment for so long that CDs just don't make that much sense. But if you just don't want to have your money sitting in a really low yield savings account, then yeah, why not throw $5,000 into or $3,000 into a 1-year CD and earn something on that rather than just having it in your savings account. If that's what you want to do, that's a perfectly fine thing to do. Which credit card would you recommend paying off first? Higher APR or lowest debt? Oh, without a doubt, APR. Pay off that APR, the highest APR ones first. Knock that out. That, high APRs are just going to eat you up. They will eat you alive. It's just not, it's not good. Pay off your high interest credit cards. You got to pay them off. They're no good. They are the amount of interest folks are, credit card companies are allowed to pay to charge you are exorbitant. You got to get rid of them. You got to. What is your opinion on the weight value of a degree from a Cal State versus a private school relative to your career income? This goes into some complicated territory. Listen, some private schools do. They do very good jobs educating. Some Cal States do a very good job educating. I would argue that, in terms of the money that you pay, I would put a Cal State education up against just about any private in the state of California. That includes someplace like Stanford. I would put Cal State against UCLA and USC and Berkeley, depending upon which program that you're in, right? But the real question that you're asking me is, what are the returns to the status associated with a private or a UC degree versus a Cal State? This entirely depends on the specific labor market that you want to enter, right? Now, if you're an MBA, right? If you're trying to get an MBA degree, right? Our business school is actually pretty dang good, and you can put that up against some of the strongest in the state, right? And so there, the returns may not matter. Now, don't get me wrong; some of them matter more, right? There are some private, and some of the UC business schools have very high status, but ours is pretty high status too. If you look at, say, social work, right? USC has a very high status social work. Could that have a positive impact down the road if you're trying to get a manager job in a hospital or something like that? It could have an impact. Where I would say it would have a bigger impact is if you want to start your own social work practice, right? And you have to get people to come into your practice. Could the higher status of having a USC MSW or something versus a Cal State MSW make a difference to the general public who has to come into your practice? It could, but it depends upon your individual labor market and what you specifically want to do. There's no one answer to this question. There just really isn't. It depends on your specific circumstances. And the people you should talk to about this are the admissions folks in your program. And there's nothing wrong with calling up those privates or those UC admissions programs and just faking the funk and pretending like you're going to do it. You're going to go to those programs and say, and hear their perspective on status. Now, of course, they're salesmen. They're going to sell their program and make it sound like, it actually makes a difference. But if you do your research, in some places it matters, in other places it just doesn't. It really doesn't. It depends on where you're trying to go. And depends on, the specific type of work that you want to do. I know that's not super helpful, but that's the reality of it. Finance background. That's super varies. That really varies. And I would not feel very comfortable speculating on that without doing some more both labor market and general market research on that, to be honest with you. I'm getting an MBA. Should I get another degree like an MS in finance? Oh, that's a more complicated question than I'm comfortable answering. I know finance. I know a little bit about the sociology of finance, and I'm happy to talk to you about what I know privately. But I don't know that I could go in detail in this forum to actually give you a lot of really useful information about that. That's something that you really should talk to your business advisors about. As someone planning to move out of his parents' house next year, what are some initial first steps you recommend to starting us into adulthood as smart as possible? Really, your credit is your key to adult living, because your credit is going to help you be able to rent a place when you leave and you try to go out on your own 2 feet. Making sure you'll be able to get a credit card, so if something comes up, you'll be able to pay for something. Having that financial cushion, that's really the key for adulthood. So it really does start with these very basic things of making sure you have a budget, making sure you have a cushion, and really making sure you're increasing the salience of money in your life so that you pay attention, to meeting your financial obligations. And of course, finally, treating your credit as an asset that you want to grow across time, right? That you want to grow across time, and you have to do all that you can to protect it. And the key thing that you can do to protect it, making sure you don't miss payments on your financial obligations. That was a lot. Rapid fire. We've been going and going and going. I hope I answered many of your questions. Any final quick things in the chat? Thank you all for being here. Some of you all posted some stuff in the chat. If you want me to provide proof of attendance, drop me an email. I am A.S. Alvarez, ALVAREZ at Fullerton.edu. I'm happy to email you back something that you can show to your professor or whatever, or what have you. I hope you felt like you learned something. Thank you very much for being here. Make sure you fill out the survey afterwards. And if you have other questions, comments, issues, feel free to reach out. Nice talking to you all, and good night. Okay.